A few people are thinking about the date of the next election, but it has been the subject of debate in the House of Commons. We do have fixed election dates in this country, but the Liberals were looking to move it 1 week later. The result would secure pensions for 80 MPs who were first elected in 2019. Keep the date where it is, and those politicians won't get that parliamentary pension if they don't get re-elected. Now, there have been a number of developments on this today, so let's bring back the front bench. Sabrina Grover, Melanie Paradis, Carl Boulanger, and Rachel Aiello. Now, Rachel, you've been doing some great reporting on this, so what is the latest?
So today there was the first round of debate on this bill, and we heard very clearly that the government is now in a position where if they want to pass this bill, they might have to make amendments to this section. That's because the NDP have said they're going to be bringing forward an amendment trying to keep the date October 20th. The Conservatives very clearly against this Liberal pension plan, as they called it. And then we were thinking maybe the Liberals would look to the Bloc because more than half their caucus are among these 80 MPs who could secure a pension. Well, no, they are also against this for a few reasons. The pensions is one of them. They're also concerned about making religious accommodations. The government said initially in making the suggestion of moving it to the 27th was connected to Diwali and a number of other related holidays, as well as if they were to bump the election to that date, you'd be running up against a Quebec vote. So largely it's looking like right now the government is going to have to go back to the drawing board on this piece of the bill, but there is still support for other elements of this legislation. We're talking about measures to make it harder to meddle and easier for Canadians to cast their ballots.
Right. And Carl, what's interesting in this, and the breakdown of it is 32 Conservatives, 22 Liberals, 19 Bloc, 6 New Democrats, 1 Independent whose pensions are potentially on the line. There's a bit of a vested interest for some of these MPs.
For sure. And that's why it felt like it was so blatant that this move was done. Because if it was just for religious accommodation, why don't you move it to the 13th, like a week prior,
right,
not so you don't have to qualify for those pensions. Like, I don't know why they did this move, and I don't understand why it took so long for somebody to say, I'm moving an amendment to get rid of that provision. But I guess they heard from some of their constituents, and they thought better of it, and now it's moving forward, and I think the government will have no choice, if they want the rest of the bill to go through, than to remove this proposal to move the election on the 27th.
Yeah, and Melanie, Conservatives noted that this could cost Canadian taxpayers millions of dollars. Is that where Canadians can actually really relate to this, other than when they're going to cast their ballots?
Yeah, I mean, the reality is that they're changing the election date so that 22 Liberal caucus members can get their pension, so they don't have to run again, essentially. Or
32 Conservatives as well, though, Melanie, obviously.
Oh, yeah. But all those Conservatives are saying we don't need this. We're ready to run on our record and earn our pension by getting reelected. Whereas the Liberals are many of these individuals may not be planning to run again, or they are anticipating that they're going to lose their seats in the next election. If you look at the polling, and just to Carl's point, there actually is a way that they could do this. Still, they could test the confidence supply agreement. They could make this a vote of non-confidence if they want to, and so the Liberals could try to push this forward. I'm not sure if they'll actually go that far with this one, but it does indicate to me that there is a lot of difficulty in caucus management right now with the Liberals, and that's what this is really about.
Sabrina, do you think that's what this is really about?
I mean, selfishly, as an Albertan that has all of the municipal elections also scheduled for October 20th, I think that it will wreak havoc to have all of that happen on one day. So I'm interested to actually see how it plays out and how Alberta might have to react to that. I don't think it's a caucus management problem. I mean, I think that this is extremely, overall, this bill is very inside baseball. And you think that Canadians don't care about politics. They certainly don't care that much about talking about MP pensions. So I think it's a really interesting management that they're going to have to do with in potentially securing either the NDP or the Bloc to support this. But I do think, what they said about having some of the other holidays that come before with advanced voting and then having Diwali and then also having these municipal elections, I think there are a lot of chaotic things that are going to happen October 2025 that they're trying to prevent. I think from a PR comms perspective, they may want to message the pension piece a little bit more. But it's not that Canadians didn't know that this could be a possibility, that people are suddenly on the hook for MP pensions. That's baked in when you get elected, right? So, framing it that way, that this is some sort of surprise that we sometimes pay out pensions to MPs is, I think, a little disingenuous.
Not a surprise, but Rachel, moving it by 1 day triggers that pension.
Yeah, the other part of this that I'm finding all a bit amusing is that this is all assuming that the next election is going to be on the fixed election date,
Right.
and as a Liberal minority government, not any of the multiple months between now and then. Because in any of those circumstances, this would be completely mute, and those Liberal MPs, Conservative MPs, Bloc MPs, all of those MPs that were elected in 2019, if that vote happens any time before that October 20th, 2025, they're not getting that pension anyways.
Yeah.
And of course, they all have the chance to run again and secure that pension if they win. So I'm really curious to watch how this plays out and if they are able to come to a compromise on another date or if they just scrap this and keep the law as it is. I think there is an argument to be made for trying to set a precedent of going into the fixed election law and making this change on a one-time basis, opening that up to be a potential thing that another government could find any other excuse to try to change the date.
And Carl, you don't think this is going to be the test of the supply and confidence agreement?
I would be very surprised if the government was to fall on holding an election a week later. It's just not happening.
One week later, and yeah. But even the earlier, I mean, to Rachel's point, I mean, it's a minority government. This could be, I mean, we could be looking at June,
Right.
and this is a moot point.
Right. So don't waste time on this. Like, clearly, there's a majority of the House that wants to get rid of that provision. Get rid of it and move forward with your agenda. The more you're dragging this on, the more it looks bad on you because it looks like you're defending that move to allow these MPs to get their pension.
And all of you thought that we couldn't make electoral reform interesting. Shame on all of you. We're going to leave it right there. Thanks to Carl Boulanger, Melanie Peretti, and Sabrina Grover.